Blonde walks in a bank to get a loan. "I need to borrow $100 for a month," she says. The banker frowns but takes her information anyway. He runs her credit but can't find a report. "I'm sorry," he says, "but in the absence of a credit record, we'll have to charge 20% interest on the loan, and you'll need to put up collateral." "What does that mean?" the blonde says. "It means," the banker says, "you'll have to repay us $120, and you'll need to give us something more valuable to hold on to until you pay us back." "Something more valuable?" the blonde says. "How about my Ferrari?" The banker nearly snorts his coffee all over his desk, but he prides himself on customer service, so he soldiers on. He runs the title on the Ferrari, and what do you know, the blonde owns it free and clear. "Okay," he says, "I'll print out the papers." "Just so I understand," the blonde says, "I give you my Ferrari and you give me $100, right? And then in a month I give you $120 and you give me my Ferrari back?" "Yes," the banker says. "That's the deal." She signs the paperwork and hands him the keys. He counts out $100 for her and watches her saunter out the door. A month to the day later, he's sitting at his desk when the blonde saunters back in. She hands him $120 and says, "I get my car back, right?" "Yep," he says as he hands her the keys. She turns to go, but he stops her. "Miss, I really have to ask, why did you use a $140,000 car as collateral on a $100 loan?" "Oh," the blonde says, "I got called out of town unexpectedly on business. How else can I park a Ferrari for a month in Manhattan for only $20? A man obsessed with trains finally steals one and immediately crashes it, killing several people. At the trial, he's found guilty of multiple murders and sentenced to death. Before facing his sentence, he's offered a last meal and asks for a single banana. They give it to him. The next day, he's led to the electric chair. They strap him in, pull the switch, and nothing happens. There's never been a failure before. But because you cannot punish a person twice for the same crime, the court is forced to let him go free. Within a week, naturally, the man, still obsessed with trains, steals another one. He doesn't care that he can't drive it or that he failed catastrophically before. His only desire is to operate a train. As before, he crashes it and kills several people. Again, he stands trial and is sentenced to death, showing no remorse, only delight that he got to operate the train. His last meal request is a single banana. When he goes to the chair, the executioner pulls the switch, but nothing happens. He goes free again. The train-obsessed maniac, once more on the loose, wastes no time in hijacking a train and crashing it. His trial is speedy because this has already happened twice, and he is sentenced to death. They ask him what he'd like for his last meal. "A single banana," he says. "Oh, no you don't, you son of a bitch. We're on to you now. We know all about your little banana trick, and you're not escaping this time." The guards refuse his request and instead serve him a standard last meal of steak, potatoes, and berry cobbler. The next morning, they strap him into the electric chair, pull the switch, and nothing happens. "Did you give him the banana?" "No, sir. He asked for the banana, but we didn't give it to him, we swear," says one of the guards. Turns out the banana had nothing to do with anything. He was just a really bad conductor.
Oh my God.
A woman on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire had reached the final stage. If she answers the next question correctly, she would win the $1 million. If she answers incorrectly, she would pocket only the $32,000 milestone money. And as she suspected it would be, the $1 million question was no pushover. It was, which of the following species of birds does not build its own nest, but instead lays its eggs in the nests of other birds? Is it A, the condor, B, the buzzard, C, the cuckoo, or D, the vulture? The woman was on the spot. She did not know the answer. And she was doubly on the spot because she had used up her 50-50 lifeline and her audience poll lifeline. All that remained was her phone-a-friend lifeline, and the woman had hoped against hope that she would not have to use it, mainly because the only friend that she knew would be home happened to be a blonde. But the contestant had no alternative. She called her friend and gave her the question and the 4 choices. The blonde responded unhesitatingly, "That's easy. The answer is C, the cuckoo. The contestant had to make a decision and make it fast. She considered employing a reverse strategy and giving Regis any answer except the one that her friend had given her. And considering that her friend was a blonde, that would seem to be the logical thing to do. On the other hand, the blonde had responded with such confidence, such certitude, that the contestant could not help but be persuaded. Time was up. "I need an answer," said Regis. Crossing her fingers, the contestant said, "C, the cuckoo." "Is that your final answer?" asked Regis. "Yes, that is my final answer," she said, breaking into a sweat. After the usual foot-dragging delay, Regis said, "I regret to inform you that that answer is absolutely correct. You are now a millionaire." 3 days later, the contestant hosted a party for her family and friends, including the blonde who had helped her win the $1 million. "Jenny, I just do not know how to thank you," said the contestant. "Because of your knowing the answer to that final question, I am now a millionaire. And do you want to know something? It was the assuredness with which you answered the question that convinced me to go with your choice." "You're welcome," the blonde said. "By the way," the winner said, not being able to contain the question anymore, "how did you happen to know the right answer?" "Oh, come on," said the blonde. "Everybody knows that cuckoos don't build nests, they live in clocks." Jacob, age 92, and Beth, age 89, are excited about their decision to get married. They go for a stroll to discuss the wedding, and on the way they pass a chemist. Jacob suggests they go in. Jacob addresses the man behind the counter. "Are you the owner?" The pharmacist answers yes. "Jacob, we're about to get married. Do you sell heart medication?" Pharmacist, "Of course we do." Jacob, "How about medicine for circulation?" Pharmacist, "All kinds." Jacob, "Medicine for rheumatism, scoliosis?" Pharmacist, "Definitely." Jacob, "Medicine for memory problems, arthritis, jaundices?" Pharmacist, "Yes, a large variety, the works." Jacob, "What about vitamins, sleeping pills, antidotes for Parkinson's disease?" Pharmacist, "Absolutely." Jacob, "You sell wheelchairs and walkers?" Pharmacist, "All speeds and sizes. Why do you ask? Is there something I can help you with?" Jacob says to the pharmacist, "We'd like to nominate your store as our bridal gift shop registry."
Bubba the redneck decides to travel across the South to Virginia. When he gets to Franklin, he likes the place so much that he decides to stay. But first, he must find a job. Bubba walks into an international paper company office and fills out an application as an experienced log inspector. It's his lucky day. They just happen to be looking for someone. But first, the log foreman takes him for a ride into the forest in the company pickup truck to see how much Bubba really knows. Soon, the foreman stops the truck on the side of the road and points at a tree. "See that tree over there? I want you to tell me what species it is and how many board feet of lumber it contains." Bubba promptly answers that there's white pine 383 board feet of lumber in there. The foreman is impressed. He puts the truck in motion and stops about a mile down the road. He points at another tree through the passenger window and asks the same question again. This time, it's a bigger tree of a different class. Bubba replies, "That's a mountain pine and she's got about 456 clear board feet." The foreman is really impressed with this good old boy. He has gotten all the answers right without even using a calculator. As a final test, they drive a little further down the road and the foreman stops again. This time, he points across the road through his driver's side window and asks, "And what about that one?" Before the foreman finishes pointing, Bubba says, "White oak, 242 board feet at best." The foreman spins the truck around and heads back to the office, a little ticked off because he thinks the redneck thinks he's smarter than he is. As they near the office, the foreman stops the truck once again and asks Bubba to step outside. He hands him a piece of chalk and tells him, "See that tree over there? I want you to mark an X on the front of that tree." The foreman thinks to himself, "Idiot, how would he know which is the front of the tree?" Bubba goes over to the tree, then walks around it in a circle while looking at the ground. He then reaches up and places a big white X on the trunk. Bubba walks back to the foreman and hands him the chalk. "That there's the front," says Bubba. The foreman laughs to himself and asks sarcastically, "How in the heck do you know that's the front of the tree?" Bubba looks down at his feet while rubbing the toe of his left boot, cleaning it in the gravel, and replies, "'Cause." somebody took a shit behind it. A farmer had 5 female pigs. Times were hard, so he decided to take them to the county fair and sell them. At the fair, he met another farmer who owned 5 male pigs. After talking a bit, they decided to mate the pigs and split everything in half. The farmers lived 60 miles apart, so they agreed to drive 30 miles each, find a field in which to let the pigs mate. The first morning, the farmer with the female pigs got up at 5 a.m., loaded the pigs into the family station wagon, which was the only vehicle he had, and drove the 30 miles. While the pigs were mating, he asked the other farmer, "How will I know if they are pregnant?" The other farmer replied, "If they're lying in the grass tomorrow morning, they're pregnant. If they're in the mud, they're not." The next morning, the pigs were rolling in the mud. So he hosed them off, loaded them into the family station wagon again, and proceeded to try again. This continued each morning for more than a week. Both farmers were worn out. The next morning, he was too tired to get out of bed. He called to his wife, "Honey, please look outside and tell me whether the pigs are in the mud or in the grass." She yelled, "Neither. They're in the station wagon, and one of them is honking the horn."
Five pigs walk into a bar. The first pig orders 1 beer, the second pig orders 2 beers, the third pig orders 3 beers, the fourth pig orders 4 beers, and the fifth pig orders 5 beers. The first pig drinks his beer, goes to the bathroom, and leaves. The second pig drinks both his beers, goes to the bathroom, and leaves. The third pig drinks all 3 of his beers, goes to the bathroom, and leaves. The fourth pig drinks all 4 of his beers, goes to the bathroom, and leaves. The fifth pig drinks all 5 of his beers and then leaves without going to the bathroom. "Wait a minute," says the bartender. "Why aren't you going to the bathroom like your 4 friends did? I mean, you drank more beer than any of them." "Because," says the pig, "I'm the pig that goes wee 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 all the way home."
This guy's working in the produce department at the grocery store, and a lady walks up and she says, "Excuse me." He says, "Yes." She says, "Where's the broccoli? I can't find the broccoli." He says, "We ran out of broccoli. We'll have some tomorrow morning." And he goes back to his work, and he's stacking the oranges. He hears behind him, Mister. He turns around, and it's the same lady. She says, "Where's the broccoli? You got any broccoli?" He says, "No, ma'am. We're fresh out of broccoli. We'll have some tomorrow morning." Goes back to work. A couple of minutes later, this woman walks right up in his face, and she says, "How come I can't find any broccoli?" He says, "Do me a favor, will you?" She said, "What?" "How do you spell cat? Like in catastrophic." She says, C-A-T. "How do you spell dog? Like in dogmatic?" She says, D-O-G. He says, "How do you spell like in broccoli?" She says, "There is no broccoli." He said, "That's what I'm trying to tell you, lady."
3 engineers and 3 accountants are traveling by train to a conference. At the station, the 3 accountants each buy tickets and watch as the 3 engineers buy only a single ticket. "How are 3 people going to travel on only 1 ticket?" asks an accountant. "Watch and you'll see," answers an engineer. All of them board the train. The accountants take their respective seats, but all 3 engineers cram into a restroom and close the door behind them. Shortly after the train has departed, the conductor comes around collecting tickets. He knocks on the restroom door and says, "Ticket, please." The door opens just a crack, and a single arm emerges with a ticket in hand. The conductor takes it and moves on. The accountants saw this and agreed it was a clever idea. So after the conference, the accountants decide to copy the engineers on the return trip and save some money. When they get to the station, they buy a single ticket for the return trip. To their astonishment, the engineers don't buy a ticket at all. "How are you going to travel without a ticket?" says one perplexed accountant. "Watch and you'll see," answers an engineer. When they board the train, the 3 accountants cram into a restroom, and the 3 engineers cram into another one nearby. The train departs. Shortly afterward, one of the engineers leaves his restroom and walks over to the restroom where the accountants are hiding. He knocks on the door and says, "Ticket, please." An Arizona Highway Patrol officer stops a Harley rider for traveling faster than the posted speed limit. He asks the old biker his name. Fred, he replies. Fred what? The officer asks. Just Fred, the old man responds. The officer is in a good mood, thinks he might just give the old biker a break and write him out a warning instead of a ticket. The officer then presses him for the last name. The old man tells him that he used to have a last name, but lost it. The officer thinks that he has a nutcase on his hands, but plays along with it. Tell me, Fred, how did you lose your last name? The old biker replies. It's a long story, so stay with me. I was born Fred Johnson. I studied hard and got good grades. When I got older, I realized that I wanted to be a doctor. I went through college, medical school, internship, and residency, and finally got my degree, so I was Fred Johnson, MD. After a while, I got bored being a doctor, so I decided to go back to school. Dentistry was my dream. I got all the way through school, got my degree, so then I was Fred Johnson, MD, DDS. I got bored doing dentistry, so I started fooling around with my assistant, and she gave me VD, so now I was Fred Johnson, MD, DDS, with VD. Well, the ADA found out about the VD, so they took away my DDS. Then I was Fred Johnson, MD, with VD. Then the AMA found out about the ADA taking away my DDS because of the VD, so they took away my MD, leaving me as Fred Johnson with VD. Then the VD took away my Johnson, so now I am just Fred. The officer walked away in tears, laughing.